What's up everybody, this is the 2023 Lexus RC 350 F Sport all-wheel drive. So about the RC, well, this vehicle is 9 years old now, debuting at the end of 2014 and starting as a 2015 model year vehicle, and it will continue into the 2024 model year. This one here is a 2023, basically unchanged for 2024 still. But as far as the styling, I have to really commend the Lexus designers that designed this way back then, because I think, it did get a refresh in 2019, which freshened it up a little bit, but the basic look is still the same, and I think that it has aged so well here over nearly a decade and just looks great, especially here in this ultrasonic blue mica color. Looks just as good in this color as it did 9 years ago. And anyway, yeah, it's just a really nice look up front there. I still love those triple beam LED headlights, which still are an optional add-on to get, but are, really nice look. And you have some nice dark wheels here on the F Sport version, the F Sport badging. I just love the side silhouette though of this vehicle, though. It's still so sleek and slender. And then going out to the back end, I still love those taillights and the integrated spoiler there in the rear trunk lid. And here on the RC 350, it's a little less sporty with the rear diffuser there compared to like the RCF, which I've been fortunate enough to spend a couple of weeks in a few of those. But it's just a really nice look out back there. I still love the curves of the hips here in the back, and those rear fenders just look so good. And I just have to commend the Lexus for its staying power as well, with many of its rivals like the Infiniti Q60 and even the Mercedes C-Class Coupe going away. The fact that this has stuck around and continues to have solid appeal even to this day is just a testament to just how good this car is. So anyway, I just still think it looks great on the outside here. The interior of the RC hasn't changed much in the past 9 years here either, but for 2023, it did get a nice little improvement. So now the screen is a touchscreen. You have an 8-inch touchscreen as standard, and this 10.3-inch touchscreen is an option here on these higher trims. And, it still runs the old Lexus infotainment system, so it's not going to be as good as the other stuff that you see in other newer Lexus products these days. And it still doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto either. You do have wired in CarPlay and Android Auto, which is fine, but everything else in the Lexus lineup these days has that wireless connectivity. And so, a little bit unfortunate it doesn't have it here, and it doesn't sound like it's going to get anything better for 2024 either. I guess they're just letting this one run its course, and we'll see what happens maybe for 2025. I don't know. But anyway, it still works fine as far as all the usual stuff you can do. You still have the touchpad down here too if you'd prefer that. But thankfully, this infotainment system really isn't that bad to use, and I've had no problems, in the entire 9 years, even when I had to use the controller pad. But now with the touchscreen, especially for CarPlay, that makes it more convenient. And so it's great that you have that modernization. And this one here has the optional Mark Levinson premium surround sound stereo, which is 17 speakers, 835 watts of power, and it'll give you a really nice sound experience in addition to all the other luxury features here of this vehicle. But getting back to the other stuff here, you have these nice F Sport seats here in the F Sport version, of course. They're a little bit sportier with the bolstering here and are nice and deep with the bolstering. I really like them. They really hug you in well. And I also like the yellow accents here. You can, of course, just get regular black leather seats. You can also get a beige color leather as well. But, just a fun touch here with the yellow stitching and everything. Just kind of livens up this interior and make it a little more exciting. The steering wheel here in the F Sport is, a cool steering wheel here, of course. And you have, again, more of the contrast stitching here on it. It's the old Lexus wheel, but works totally fine. No complaints, really. Aside from the fact that, stuff in this price segment, typically I'd like to see metal paddle shifters. You have plastic here. Aside from that, I still have no complaints with the wheel, although this one, unfortunately, does not have the heated steering wheel option. It's only $150. You just have to make sure that even on, one of these upper RC 350s, it is an extra cost option, unfortunately. So you got to make sure that is definitely checked. One thing you do get as standard here on the F Sport version is heated and ventilated seats here. Moving on to the gauge cluster here, I still love this gauge cluster. It was one of the first to be digital back in the day and was really futuristic for its time. And I think it still has held up really well. It's obviously not the most high resolution these days, but it's still wonderfully simple and so concise with the information, the way it's displayed. Everything you need, nothing you don't. If you want to have more, it slides over, which is still such a cool party trick. Slides over and you have, a larger view there of whatever in the middle. Again, certainly not super advanced by modern standards, but still totally fine. No complaints with that either. And then the other things here, I still love how you have an analog clock, which is great. Other old-fashioned throwbacks, you still have a CD player here in the RC. One of the last few vehicles on sale with a CD player. And, especially with a surround sound stereo, CD, is a really nice thing to have still, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just showing my age a little bit here. But, it's great to still have a CD player, honestly. Climate controls and all that are still nice and simple and easy to use. And, all this stuff, materials-wise, wise is really great too. You know, I love the trim surrounds everything, the ceramic buttons for volume and tuning knobs here, the, you know, nicer feeling, you know, metal finishes for these plastic controllers for your drive modes, and you know, the old Lexus shifter. I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling nostalgic, but it's just all this stuff you don't see in, you know, anything else from Lexus these days, really, outside of maybe the IS. But you know, just really well done. You know, it's also nice and plush in here still. It always has been and still continues to be. You know, they had padding down by your knees before it was common, honestly, and you know, you had a nice soft center armrest, super nice and softly padded. You open that up, then you still have 2 USB-A jacks, no USB-C here. This is one of the few vehicles I've seen in the 2023 model year that didn't get USB-C jacks, and a good amount of space, honestly, for a coupe with that little cubby there. And there's little pockets here on the doors too. But anyway, overall, just still a really nice interior up front. And also, I want to mention the back seat here. You know, previously, you know, people have said, oh, it's kind of cramped and stuff, and you know, it's certainly not the most usable back seat, but I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself, I actually fit, and my knees are just barely grazing the seat back there. If I have my legs spread, you know, I'm actually totally comfortable back there. I mean, headroom is tight. I have maybe an inch to spare. I mean, so if you're taller than 5'9", it's probably not going to be great, but if you're 5'9" or less, I'd say you can actually fit back there comfortably, as long as the driver and the front seat passenger here aren't too tall. So really nice there. You also have air vents even back there. Now there's no cup holders or anything else, but you know, nice to at least have the air vents and a decent amount of space. Trunk space also isn't bad. Now it's not huge still, but for a coupe and a 2-door, I think it's actually pretty good, better than some competitors, and you know, I think very usable again, and better than you might be expecting, honestly. But yeah, so overall, just a really nice interior here in the RC still. But let's start up and go for a drive. The RC still has their good old key they've used for a long time now, and you know, just all the basics there. It's still just plastic, a little bit of a metal trim piece there, but nothing too fancy, but gets the job done. It is, of course, keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the RC350. So the first things you notice about this, well, I think the one thing that I've always appreciated about the RC is that even though it's a coupe, you have great visibility, and you know, you don't have to be tall to see over this dashboard here. You know, the hood drops down nicely, A-pillars are nice and thin, the door mirrors are way off onto the doors there. They're not, you know, at the A-pillar like many other vehicles. So you actually have excellent visibility for a coupe, and I really love that it's just so easy to see out of the RC. It makes it really easy to live with. View out of the back is great as well. Another thing that I'm really savoring here, especially in, you know, the end of 2023, is just how analog everything feels. You know, the steering feels so direct and old school feeling, and you know, throttle response with a naturally aspirated engine connected to a torque converter automatic. It's just all so direct and so old school, but it makes you wonder why things ever really changed from this, because it's just it just feels the way you want it to feel. It's familiar, it's normal, and it's just easy and just feels good. And so, you know, it's just a really wonderful thing these days with everything else being so highly technical, with, you know, more artificial feeling steering, and, you know, everything just being so much more digital feeling, and, you know, many of the other competitors even. It's also nice and quiet, a nice smooth ride here. You have adaptive dampers here for the F Sport versions, and so even though the wheels are a little bit bigger here on the F Sport version, you know, you do have the different drive modes. There's a normal and a custom mode, which will, you know, be the softer modes along with Eco, and then there's the Sport and the Sport Plus mode. And that Sport Plus mode in particular is exclusive here to the F Sport version. And with all the competitors these days going to turbocharged 4-cylinder engines, it's just so nice having this buttery smooth, very melodic sounding V6 here. It's just, again, another old school thing that I think has actually aged really well. But I'm going to go ahead and put it up into the Sport Plus mode, and let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. Nice and responsive. Oh man, that sounds better than I remembered. Oh wow. I just want to drink in that sound. It sounds so good. I love the way Lexus does sound too, where they do have a sound tube connected to the engine, which gives you a lot of induction note. That's something you get in all the other Lexus models. I love it in like the IS 500 in particular, with the V8 and all that. But you know, here with the V6, it still just sounds so good. So anyway, it's a naturally aspirated 3.5 liter V6 engine still. It does 311 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. And so over the years, that number has bumped up a few. It used to be be a few less horsepower and a few less pound-feet of torque. I'm not sure what has changed since, but still it's a 5.6 seconds 0 to 60 time for these, at least the all-wheel drive version is what Car and Driver got, was a 5.6 second time. And it's hooked up to a 6-speed automatic transmission here with the all-wheel drive versions. If you go for a rear-wheel drive version, you do get an 8-speed automatic transmission instead, which is definitely a little bit better, gives a slightly better highway fuel economy. But this V6 is still pretty responsive. We'll try out some manual shifts here in a minute and see how that does, But these Lexus transmissions, even the 8-speed that you got in like the IS 500 and like the GSF and things from back in the day, I mean, it was never a super sporty transmission, honestly, but yeah, it's typical old Lexus torque converter kind of speeds here for the shifts. But, it's fine. I mean, most people aren't going to be paddle shifting around in their, RC 350, so it's totally fine. But, it's nice you have the paddles, and it's nice that it can do it there if you do want, a little bit of a sportier driving experience there. But also, this road that we're on currently usually generates a decent amount of road noise. And here in this, it's not too bad. It's actually pretty nice and quiet here. So, anyway, we're coming up some corners here I always take, and let's see how the RC 350 F Sport handles it. So, I love the steering. All this driver inputs get a little bit sharper here in the Sport Plus drive mode. Those adaptive dampers get a little bit stiffer, but they're not overly stiff either, I'd say. And so, it's just slicing and dicing these corners totally fine. Feels really good. The steering is definitely on the heavy side, though. It feels good and what you'd expect out of a Sport Plus, steering setup, but I just want to keep listening to that engine. It's just so nice sounding. Sport Plus mode likes to keep it in those higher RPMs as well, so you can certainly drink it in even more in that mode. But it just handles itself really well. So in addition to the adaptive dampers, as far as weight goes, these always were a little bit on the heavier side, but most of the vehicles in this segment, especially the all-wheel drive ones, were very similar with their weight. So this weighs just under 4,000 pounds. I think it's 3,986 pounds to be exact. Is what Car and Driver weighed 2022 at, and it handles great, especially if you're going for the 350. You probably want a mix of comfort and sportiness, and this does that really well. It has the adaptive dampers, it has the drive modes there to suit your mood and what you want out of the vehicle, but it's not going to be quite as hardcore as the RCF, of course, which is really fantastic and a ton of fun as well if you're someone who can live with rear-wheel drive. It sounds so good. I mean, it doesn't feel overly fast, but I think, the experience of this engine, especially these days, and the strong linear power delivery, I mean, it goes almost to 7,000 RPM, too, for the red line. So, I mean, it's a good amount of power band to work through there, and it just feels really nice to, run it through. Now, obviously, in the real world, even though most of the German competitors these days have just a turbo 4-cylinder and have less horsepower and torque on paper, because they either have, newer transmissions or just the way those turbos, really spool up nice and early, most of those are going to feel faster around town still. That's why everyone went to the turbo 4-cylinders. They have more punch down low, whereas this, you have to rev it out to get that power out of it. It's just a different type of driving experience. Some people prefer one over the other. It's just kind of a subjective taste thing, but it just means that the German competitors, even with less power, do typically slightly faster 0 to 60 times than what you get here in this. So most people buying in this segment probably aren't going to be drag racers that need every last tenth of a second of speed, but it's just worth noting that this may seem like it's faster on paper, but in reality it really isn't. But that's okay, because it's still just a really nice driving thing here. And now I'm back in the normal mode, just doing a highway merge. It really is super responsive, and this old 6-speed automatic is more responsive than some modern 10-speed automatics are these days. So, I gotta say that I think that it's one of those things where if it's not broke, don't fix it. This 6-speed auto is great, and I don't think that you're really going to be wanting for much better, especially from a luxury, sporty-ish sedan. I think this is totally great. But merging onto the highway here now, we'll go ahead and put on the adaptive cruise control system. It does have adaptive cruise control as standard now. It also has blind spot monitoring here. You have lane keeping assist as standard, automatic emergency braking, all those types of things here. And so really nice to have those things. the adaptive cruise system, it's not going to be anything crazy. It doesn't do automatic steering or anything like that. Again, we're talking about old tech here, so it's not going to be super advanced with like lane keep and all that, but it's going to be totally fine and take some of the extra fatigue out of driving. Just having adaptive cruise on its own is still a really nice thing. But I'd say that the amount of equipment you get here in this is still really competitive, and I don't think that everyone makes adaptive cruise standard like Lexus does, so I think you actually potentially coming out ahead a little bit in this compared to some of the others. But just cruising on the highway here now, I also have to add that it's still a really nice highway cruiser. Pretty nice and quiet, pretty serene. Then you turn on this also Mark Levinson surround sound stereo, and it just is going to wipe away any kind of sounds outside, and you're just going to be drenched in your awesome surround sound experience and all your favorite music there with very good quality. So anyway, yeah, but overall just a nice thing to cruise around in here. But thanks to Lexus, I will have the RC350 here for an entire week, so I'm going to drive around all over the place, and I'll come back and give you guys my final real-world fuel economy, as well as my thoughts on the pricing, how this compares to its few competitors out there these days, and anything else I noticed here during my week of driving. Alright, so I've been driving the RC here for a week now, and overall I still love this car. It is just so smooth, so seamless and flawless. It just works perfectly. There's really like nothing about this vehicle that upsets me whatsoever. It is so nice to drive, so nice to live with, and yeah, I'm just very happy that we still have the RC around here in 2023 and 2024. We will see what comes next from Lexus. I'm assuming this isn't going to last too much longer, but we haven't really heard any concrete plans for the next year or two here, so we'll have to see what happens. But as far as the other main couple of things I mentioned very briefly, pricing and fuel economy and how this compares to the competition. So first off, as far as fuel economy goes, these are rated at 19 mpg in the city, 26 on the highway, and 22 combined. In my driving here, I've done 116 miles of mostly suburban around town driving. There was a little bit of highway driving mixed in there though, but anyway, I'm getting 20.5 mpg. So I'm better than the city rating, which honestly is better than what I usually get with most other press vehicles that I do on similar driving on these same kind of roads. I'm usually getting around the city figure. So to be doing a little bit better than the city figure, I'm pretty happy with that. Not too far off from that combined figure. And again, for something with an old V6 all-wheel drive, and also we're in the winter months here now, pretty much. It's yeah, I'd say pretty happy with that kind of fuel economy again for something like this that's as heavy and as luxurious as this is. Now, as far as the pricing, how it compares to the competition, there it also compares very favorably, in my opinion. One of the luxuries of this being older is that while it has had little price increases over the years, it hasn't been hit with a giant price increase of a new generation like you often see and like many of the competitors have now gone through. And so these start at $46,420, including destination, for the base RC 300 rear-wheel drive. Now this fully loaded all-wheel drive V6 RC 350 F Sport is going to run you about $60,775 as tested. And again, I bump it up to 61 just to give yourself a heated steering wheel, but otherwise this is pretty much fully loaded, and it's a very nice place to be in. So anyway, as far as how that compares to the competition, a lot of the competition is going away or changing. So I'd say the closest competitor was the Infiniti Q60. You can't get those anymore. I really like the Q60 though. I'm sad that it's gone away, because that I think was really impressive. Had a higher horsepower option while still offering all-wheel drive, but that unfortunately hasn't had the staying power that the RC has had, and so Q60 is no longer an option on the new market. On the used market, could be a great deal, although they do depreciate quicker than the RC. So yeah, that's one of the great things about the RC is, regardless of how it compares to the competition, this holds its value so well being a Lexus, and is going to be more reliable than all the other competitors that I think this really is almost in a class of its own in some ways, just because now it's really truly the only super well built thing that's going to last a long time, and I don't think you can say that about the German competitors especially. And so getting into those German competitors though, now basically, so the C-Class coupe is gone. That's done here after the 2023 model year. It's going to be replaced by the CLE, which is combining the C-Class and E-Class coupes. We don't have pricing for those yet, but it is almost certainly going to be well above the price pricing of this. I'd be shocked if it even starts, you know, under 50 or 55. So, you know, that's going to be, you know, immediately disqualified. Just it's more expensive and kind of has gone up a class a little bit as well. So the remaining competitors here are the 4 Series and the A5. Now, as far as the A5, that one is almost identically priced to this because that is also a little bit dated at this point. I really like the S5 and the RS5. I have not actually spent a week with a regular A5, but you know, I really like that vehicle. Audis are really great. You know, it's just another one of those ones that, will it have the staying power of a Lexus? In my opinion, probably not. But still a nice vehicle nonetheless, and the fact you can get it for similar pricing. Now, I will say with Audi, they make you choose between the sporty interior and ventilated seats. You can't have both. But aside from that one caveat, you know, it's pretty identically equipped with its top prestige trim and the options you can get on those compared to this. So that is one that's certainly worth considering. The Audi's, you know, really nice choice nonetheless, especially if you're looking for a shorter term thing, you're only leasing for a couple of years or something, that could make a little more sense potentially. And you also have, you know, the more advanced, newer infotainment system in those and things like that too. But the other one, the BMW 430i, and then I guess the 440i. 440i already starts, I think, like 65 grand or something, you know, for a base one of those. But even a 430i, which gives you less horsepower. You know, they all go down to 4-cylinder turbo engine. Same thing with the A5. That's one of the compromises you make with that. Comparably set up to the way this one is, you're still looking at a vehicle that's going to be about at least $63,500 for, you know, again, on paper, less horsepower, less cylinders, and, you know, certainly again, some nicer stuff with the brand new infotainment system. You know, the tech and the germs is definitely going to be much better than when you get here on the Lexus, which is just straight up old. But, you know, if you don't need to have the newest tech possible, and you are someone who, again, values staying power, who values strong resale, and just a really high quality product that you can drive for, you know, 10 plus years without a single worry, most likely, you know, I think that that's, you know, a really strong appeal here for the RC. I just think that these have aged incredibly well. I think that they're honestly more appealing than they were back then. Back then, you know, it was, everyone thought that these were too heavy, that they, you know, weren't as good looking as some of the competitors and all this other stuff. But as times have gone on here, I'd say that most, like most other Lexus products, they all age very well. And, you know, now later in their life cycle, I think it's kind of, you know, this more analog, more old school kind of approach, you know, with buttons and knobs, which all the others have, especially the BMW, has thrown out, you know, a good bit of. You know, you have more of that traditional, you know, flavor here in the RC, and I think that, you know, for people that like that older school kind of feeling, I think this has, you know, huge appeal. But anyway, so that's about all of my thoughts here on the RC, but let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Lexus here for providing me here with the RC to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I'll leave you guys with an acceleration here, and yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Sounds so good.